Good evening and welcome to our Bible study time for this Wednesday evening, the 24th of June 2020. I started to say of September. I'm not sure where my mind's at, maybe wishful thinking, but it is still June. And we come this evening, and I'd like to do something similar to what we did last week and just do kind of a reflexive study of a psalm, and this time one that is very dear to me, one that I particularly like, Psalm number 139. Rather than an exegetical study, a study of line by line what it means, rather what it means to us and some of the feelings that it evokes, because I believe that it reflects many of the feelings we've been feeling this year in this time of the coronavirus, the COVID-19. Everything has changed this year, and it does produce some feelings. So I would like for you to do something. Do this for me, but for yourself. Do it because it will help our time of study. And I'm not going to ask you to submit anything or turn anything in or even share anything if you don't want to. But for yourself, I'd like for you to write some things down as we go. So take a moment right now, reach over and hit the pause button or the stop button on this video and run and get, if you like to journal, go get your journal. If not, get a pad of paper, get a couple pieces of paper, a pencil, something to write with that you can bring it and make some notes as we go. So I'm just going to pause right now for a moment. I'm not going to leave this time run, so I don't want to just sit here doing nothing for 5 minutes. So rather just hit your stop button or hit your pause button, run, get a piece of paper or a journal or a pad or whatever you want to write on, and then come back and start up your video once again, and we'll pick up from there. Okay, I'm assuming that you're back and started back and you have your paper, your pencil handy. I'd like to discuss a lot tonight about our feelings. And I'm using as an example a retreat that was done by Reverend Dr. Amy Green. Amy is the head of spiritual care at the Cleveland Clinic. She's over all of the chaplains and training the chaplains there, and so she understands these feelings very well. As I said, this psalm is one that has been a favorite of mine for a lot of years. I've used it in retreat settings and in other settings, but I want tonight to take a look at it. But as we start, what I'd like to do is to have you, we'll just take about 1 minute. I'm not even going to have you pause the video at this time. I don't have any nice music to play in the background, but we'll just take about a minute. And I'd like for on your paper to write down what's your experience of loss. We have lost a lot in the last couple of months. And some of our losses are very big, very large, and some of our losses can be seemingly trivial, but they're losses nonetheless. I know one of the losses I've experienced, that we have a tendency in our family to eat out quite a bit, and having several favorite restaurants close and not be available is certainly a loss. Trivial loss maybe, but a loss nonetheless. There are some other losses that are big. We've lost people that we love. We've lost fellowship. We've lost the ability to worship like we're used to. We've lost, in some cases, jobs, income. We've lost relationships. Hopefully we'll gain some back. We may have lost economically. We may have just lost, on the other hand, familiarity, things that we're used to doing that we haven't been able to do. So just, if you haven't already, write down a couple of things, just some examples of something that you've lost. Then I want to tear into this psalm and look at the feelings. This psalm is neat because it really captures, to my way of thinking, the full range of human feelings. And feelings are not always good or bad, or there may be one or maybe the other. And I think the thing that we learn from this psalm and what we need to understand is it's okay to feel what we're feeling. I don't know about you, but I have felt the whole range of excitement of doing some things some new ways, to frustration at not being able to make the technology work the way I want, to sometimes just plain anger at the loss of things. My experience of loss is the loss of the ability to do ministry like I normally do and would like to. Not being able to go to the nursing homes and see people, not being able to visit people in the hospital when they've been there, not to be able to participate in a wedding that I would have liked to have, not to participate in funeral services. There are just a lot of things that have been a loss. And so some of my feelings, to be honest about them, are even feelings of anger or frustration. So I think we need to look at these feelings and to say that they're okay. It's okay to have these emotions and these feelings, the whole range. Sometimes more of the feelings together, all at the same time. So 139 kind of goes through this whole range of feelings. I want to look at that one, if we may. We'll divide the psalm into 4 parts. It neatly divides into 4 sections of 6 verses each. Listen with me as I read the first section. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain it. I don't know about you, but this particular section of the psalm gives me a good feeling. It helps me to see that God has searched me inside out, and he knows me. Now, to be really honest, that can be good and bad in and of itself, feelings. There are sometimes maybe that I don't want God to know everything about me, but he does anyway. And it is amazing to me that God not only knows me, but he still loves me anyway. That's cause for great celebration, the way I look at it. And yet there are times we probably might find ourselves, if we're honest, wishing God didn't know everything about us. He knows us. He already knows us, and it's good to be known. He knows when we sit down and rise up. That's been driven home for me here lately, because in this whole coronavirus time, my rising up and laying down have been totally out of cycle. Just the other morning, I went to bed around 11 o'clock thinking I'm going to get a good night's sleep, and for whatever reason, I woke up after about a 2-hour nap at 1 o'clock in the morning and was wide awake. And I thought, well, if I read, maybe I will get sleepy again. And I read until 4:30 in the morning, and finally got sleepy when it was only a couple hours till time to get up. And so I got up and, dragging along, got done what I had to do, researched and put together and recorded and posted my morning thoughts, had a bite of breakfast, and after that I was tired and I went back to bed and took another nap. God knows my rising up and my lying down, even when it makes no sense to me. He knows. He knows my thoughts. That is kind of scary sometimes, because there's things that I might think that I don't say. And there's things that I might think that I'm not sure I want God to know, but He knows them anyway. He's familiar with all my ways. He knows. He knows me. He knows me. He knows me so well that even before a thought becomes a word on my tongue, He knows it. And it says, I am hemmed in. You hem me in, Lord, behind and before. It's like being closed in but contained. He's in front of us and He's behind us, and it's like protection. It's like protection from everything. This God, who is the great God, the all-knowing, the all-powerful God, the amazing God that we serve, cares enough about me to hem me in, to build a fence around me, if you will, to protect me. I am surrounded by the goodness of God. I would now that you take your piece of paper and think about these images. I'm going to take a few moments. You can take as long as you like, actually. You're going to control the time, because I'm going to ask you to turn the video off. And I would say take 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever you need, and just write down your thoughts about these images. Think about this idea of God knowing you intimately. What about that is comforting to you? What about that might be disturbing? I challenge you to write these thoughts down. This is for you, no one else. So it really doesn't matter what you write, but write them down. And then write down what people or events come to mind when you have these thoughts. For example, one person that comes to mind was a lady named Dorothy, who was my caregiver / godmother when I was very young, about a year old, and I distinctly remember being terrified of thunderstorms. And her, rather than taking me away from the storm, holding me and sitting in the porch swing, talking about how beautiful the lightning was and how the thunder was like God's drums, and comforting me in the midst of the storm. I was only about a year old, but I remember that, and it sticks in my mind. That to me is an image of a caring God. I'm not sure what your images might be. Write down what's comforting, what's disturbing, and what people or events that might come to mind. So turn off the video right now, stop it or pause it, and take a few minutes, however much time you need, and write down those things, and then come back. Well, welcome back, and we come now to the next section, which is verses 7 through 12, and I will read them. Where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light with you. Where can I go? Modern translations are not prone to use the term hell. They say Sheol, or something to that effect. Mine says Sheol, which is the place of punishment. King James says hell. I think it's a good image. What we view as hell. Where can we go? Where can you go to get away from God? Is there anywhere? If we ascend into the heavens, he's there. Even in the depths of hell, God is there. We do not get away from him wherever it is we go. I love this image, and it to me is an image of tremendous comfort, and yet the feelings are the same as in the first section. It also can be a feeling of terror if we think about it. If we are really trying, if we are hell-bent, if I may, on getting away from God, then this is an image of terror because we realize we cannot get away from him. That can cause terror for some people. For many of us, especially Christians, I think it's a source of comfort, the idea that nothing can snatch us away. The fact of the matter is, most of us want to be found if we sense we are lost. We want to be found, certainly, by God, and this is saying that we will be. Sometimes maybe we don't. I think if there are times that we don't want to be found, it has something to do with maybe activities that we have been doing or something we've been doing or thinking that we don't want God to know about. And maybe we need to know we are found and come to him for forgiveness. Our feelings, our emotions, various ones, come and go. They don't stay very constant, and we need to own the feelings, good feelings and the bad feelings. I mentioned that before, but I'm bringing it up again. This psalm really drives this point home. There are times that we just plain will feel bad. The main thing is that God's presence, God's seeking us and finding us, assures us that we can return, that he wants us to return, that we will not be gone forever. We will not be down forever. We will not be depressed forever. Wherever it is we've gone in our feelings, in the darkest places, God searches us out and finds us. We cannot go away from him on a forever basis. Now, I think there are times, and I don't know about you, there are times I want to be away. Not so much away from God, but just away from everything else. I don't want to be seen. Times I really don't want to be found right away. There are some times that we feel down or maybe depressed, and we just don't want anybody to bother us. And too bad, but even that sometimes includes God. The thing that I see in this is that we may not want to be found and we may not want to be bothered, but God never left. We never can completely escape God, not even in the depths of our despair, even in what we are maybe experiencing sometimes as total hell. God is there. So take another few minutes now. Pause the video. I'll be here when you come back. And write down your experience of when maybe you want to get away from God or when you want to be found by God. And then if you feel so led, consider what it is that might make you want to get away. And then share how it feels to know that you can come back, that you're welcome to come back. Take a few moments now and think about those feelings and write down your feelings. And then when you have, come back to the video. Welcome back for this, our third section of this psalm, and I will read. This is verses 13 through 18. 13 through 18. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there were none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God, how vast the sum of them. If I could count them, they are more than the sand. I awake, and I am still with you. Amy Green in her retreat said something that I thought was kind of interesting, but it expresses it so well. God has known us even when we were simply a zygote. A zygote is a fetus that's not fully formed. God knew us when we're being formed in our mother's womb. Wow, how amazing that is. How awesome that is. I've often talked with teenagers about when they come to the realization that they know how, at least intellectually, to make babies. Most of them, courtesy of the internet, know what the physical process is long before maybe we wish they would. Some, of course, even go ahead to the realm of experience. But you know, what to share with them. We know what the physical act is. We know what the physical mechanisms are. We know that it takes a man and a woman. We know that scientifically, like with other animals, there's an egg and it's fertilized, and we can go into all the details. But you know what? We cannot make life. I think the first time I witnessed childbirth, it was the realization of that. I can't make that thing that was in my wife live. I can't do that. It goes back to God's act of creation and the whole story of God forming a man and then breathing his life into the man and making him alive. There is something that happens in that process of birth that lets us know that there's a God who has been guiding this process already and all along. You formed me, knitted me together in my mother's womb. How wonderful that is. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Put it simply, that just blows my mind. We grow. I'm enjoying watching the process all over again with my grandchildren. And Jude is becoming quite the little man now that he's almost 5. And he's going to go to school this fall. And he'll let you know he's the little man. He'll let you know he's all grown up. And it's exciting to watch the process, and then to watch with Scarlett where she's at in the process, and just discovering herself, and that she can move and carry on, and watching her walking and moving around and learning what her body will do, and learning words, forming words, mimicking her parents and her grandparents, and watching this process. And it is wonderful. We grow, but we don't make ourselves grow. We don't always stop and think about it. I don't think we stop and think about the process of growth and how we take in nutrients and put out waste and that whole process. I don't think we think about that too much before we're adults, unless maybe we have to study it in a class in school somewhere. But it is amazing when you think about this. Even our very brains. Alan Watts, whose books I used to love and read often, once referred to our brain. He says, your brain, which you yourself grew without even thinking about it. I have to laugh at that line, but there it is. I can't make my brain work, can you? I can force myself to stop breathing, but if I force it to the extreme, I'll pass out, and then what happens? I start breathing again. We can't make these things happen. The body is a wonderful machine that works because there's a God who is the power and the functioning within that makes it all work together. Fearfully and wonderfully made. I could go on for a whole sermon on that line alone. It's amazing. And our soul knows this. We experience God in the depths of our being even when we don't understand him intellectually. My frame wasn't hidden from me. When I was made in secret, woven together in the depths of the earth like a plant that's been planted in the soil. And with heat and light, it comes up and it grows. Your eyes knew my unformed substance. All of my days were written in your book. God knows us. God knows us. And I think about the nurture. And I think about this God who knows us, even though we don't always want to be known. We are completely taken care of. We are completely safe. That's what I think shows in this time of a coronavirus. Let's think about for a moment nurture. We're taken care of in the big things, the awesome things. I often talk about experiencing God standing on the south rim of the Grand Canyon or on top of Clingman's Dome in the Smokies or anywhere for that matter in Yosemite National Park. But then in the little things, and I think again of Dorothy holding me in the thunderstorm. So what do you think about a God who knows us this closely, this intimately? Question comes up, can we trust God? Can we trust God on this level of intimacy? Can we risk being who we really are with God? And yet, this passage said, God, you know me. You've always known me. The question comes, why am I so foolish even to think that maybe I can escape you? Why am I so foolish to think that I can do anything on my own? Why would I even want to escape God? Interesting questions. Stop the video once again and wrestle with those feelings. Write down what it feels like to be this intimate with God. And then when you're ready, start the video back. I'll be here. Okay, welcome back. If I were being a chaplain in a hospital setting, which is where I did my training, or even in the jail setting where I lived out most of my chaplaincy years, I would probably stop with verse 18 in this psalm. That's a good stopping place. It can be very comforting while challenging, and I would not go on. But this year and this time of pandemic, I want to go on to the last section. I want to read 4 verses and then the last 2. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. O men of blood, depart from me. They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord, and do not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with complete hatred. I count them my enemies. My, oh my, oh my. We know this God who intimately takes care of us, and now we can cry out. We can have angry feelings. It's okay. It's okay, this psalmist says. I'm angry with some things that are going on right now. I have anger against anybody who would look down on a fellow human being as if they were inferior, really for any reason, but certainly for stupid reasons. God made all of us, as this psalm talks, and he made us, while he made us somewhat different, he made us more alike than different. He made us as his creation. He made us in his image. And for us to hate someone or express any sort of negativity towards someone else simply because of differences is just not according to Scripture or Christianity. And I'm in firm agreement with those who would vocalize these concerns and even protest the differences and the hostility and the racism that have existed in our culture. But I'm angry at people that would take that protest and make it to be an excuse or a reason to do violence against other people. It's a continuation of the same process. Violence is a form of hatred. And I don't care who or which side is doing the violence. The violence on all sides. Desecrating cemeteries. There's no human reason for that. I understand the anger that is coming out in the protests, but I don't understand the violence, and I particularly don't understand the looting. It's not sensible. So I'm angry for the cause. I'm angry for the trigger that triggered this one, the way a certain vicious person in the guise of a peace officer treated another person and treated them to the point of death and did it publicly and openly. That's the difference, but this sort of thing's been going on for years. It makes me angry, but then to respond in forms equally vicious does nothing. It accomplishes nothing. These people are working against God. Men of blood, it says. And I cry out to God with a psalmist, God, if you would just slay the wicked, stop these folks, do away with them, get rid of the folks of malicious intent, the people that take your name in vain, because that's what many are doing. They're taking God's name in vain, even though they may not see it that way. And I want to hate them. I want to hate them, and I want to rise up against them. The psalm lets us know that it's okay to have angry feelings. It's okay to experience rage. But it's not okay to lower yourself to the same level as those that you're angry against. The last two verses drive it home. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. And see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. When you're honest, really truly honest with ourselves, have that good look in the mirror, talk to ourselves, talk to God, we realize that so often we're guilty of some of the very things as those we are angry against. We may not be out looting and burning and stealing and desecrating. But when we wish evil on somebody else, according to Jesus Christ anyway, it's the same kind of a feeling. If you remember that passage, he said, "Thou shalt not murder," but if you even think evil thoughts toward a person, you've as good as murdered them in your heart. I think this is what David the psalmist is getting at. It's okay to have feelings of anger, Lord, and sometimes I have feelings of anger, but test me to see if I have any of these same thoughts, to see if I have any of these same desires, if I want revenge so bad that I would do violence to another person. Lord, search me and know my heart. There's a line in the Lord's Prayer. It says, "Deliver me from evil." Lord, keep me from, in another translation, from the time of trial, from the time of testing. But here we say, search me, try me. Protect me in that time of trial. Help me see, Lord, what it is that I have rage about and what I do with my rage. And do I want revenge? And do I prone towards violence or hatred towards others? And then lead me in the way everlasting. One last time of making notes. Take a few minutes and ask yourself the question and write, what do we do with our rage? Do we seek revenge? What do I do with mine? How do I discharge my hatred? How do I get rid of it? How do I let God transform me and transform my anger into something productive? Another question would be to ask with Judas, Lord, is it I? Take a couple of moments now. Stop the video. Write down your thoughts. And then come back. This has been an interesting time with this psalm. And I apologize for the length of the study, but I felt led to do this. Just in closing, as we think about those thoughts, and we can go back and look at our papers or our journals anytime. You can't read it, that's fine, but I've got mine written on these same thoughts. But I would say in closing the words that are closing the scripture, but loosely said, search me, God, test me, then lead me in the way everlasting. Show me my offense, forgive me, lead me by your Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen. I hope this kind of study has been helpful this evening. A little more meditation than direct Bible study, but to me it's kind of productive, and it's been needed in this time. Surely we have a good God who does care about us. Doesn't mean that everything goes so wonderfully well for us all the time and that we don't have any troubles. Certainly we do. But God gets us through. He will take the worst negatives that we can throw out and make them into something positive for us if we will let him. And then if we will let him lead us, and others will see too, perhaps his will can be done, not only in heaven, but on earth. This is our prayer tonight. So thank you for bearing with me. If you have reactions, please make comments. Feel free to post comments on YouTube or in Facebook. Feel free to give comments about this sort of study. I welcome those comments, and I look forward to meeting with you again. We are working very rapidly towards having worship in our church building on the 5th of July. We'll be putting out a newsletter tomorrow that has details. And if you have questions, feel free to call the church, call me, call your church leaders. We are moving that direction, but we will continue our online presence for those who are not able to be with us for whatever reason. So we look forward to that. Have a blessed rest of the evening this Wednesday evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.